Hello again, everybody, and happy opening day. Welcome to Bayou Bets. I'm Zach Ewing, the Seattle Mariners fan. I have been a Seattle Mariners fan for a long time. I've been through some bad times. So just because they're good this year does not mean that I'm jumping on a bandwagon. I am with Zoe Collins-Rath above me. She is the Chicago White Sox fan. We have Jim Derry from the north side of Chicago, the Cubs fan. See, we even got it. We got the north on the top and the south on the bottom. We got to figure it out. And then Spencer the Guru wearing the birds on the bat. I'm just gonna sit here and be like West Coast chill while you guys fight it out. It is opening day here on Bayou Bets. It's a holiday around these parts. We got games on TV. I got a beer, Flying Tiger Brewery from Monroe. Thanks for being here with us.
Drinking on the show again?
What you guys drinking?
Kickstart.
When was I not drinking on the show?
Kickstart.
I got my Bayou Bets mug here.
Wait, hold on.
Water.
Let's pause a second. Oh, say, can you see? All right, that's as far as I go.
Okay. All right.
Man, did y'all see Adam Wainwright sing the national anthem? That was incredible.
Well, he has nothing else to do.
Did he sing it like solo?
Yes. Well, he had like a couple guitar guys with him, but like he sang it. It was just him singing it. I couldn't believe it. I was like, man, I knew he could pitch. I didn't know he could sing.
He has nothing better. Phenomenal. He has nothing better to do. He's not going to pitch.
Horace is here. Favorite sports day of the year. Yeah,
he's like my age.
Opening day is so great, man. Let's do some headlines as we always do. We've got more, but MLB opens with new rules. We'll talk about that. There have been 3 games that finished. One went 307, so okay. The others went 233 and 223. And you're like, oh, this pitch clock's not going to make a difference. It's making a difference. It is making a difference.
It's still stupid, but yeah, it is making a difference.
The Yankees got done in 2.5 hours.
Yeah, Yankees. A Yankees game in 2.5 hours. Of course, other headlines this weekend. It is Final Four weekend. LSU's women's team will face Virginia Tech in the national semifinals. Tomorrow, we've got the men's team, UConn, and the 3 Cinderellas. Sounds like a fairy tale. Don't know if we'll have a fairy tale finish. And the Pelicans playing in Denver tonight. They are underdogs. As you briefly saw, they're covering up all of our faces. The Pelicans are 5.5-point underdogs in Denver tonight. So that is going on as well. Jerry's here. Hello, Jerry. His Braves won. They looked good against the
They played a minor league team.
Washington Nationals.
I mean, that doesn't even count. Sorry, Jerry.
And yeah, it's just a glorious day, guys. Let's hone in on a little bit of our picks here. We got to get World Series picks and all that. But anything impress you so far? Aaron Judge homers in his first at bat. The Cubs pitch a shutout against the Brewers. I bet way too many futures.
My kind of team, Charlie. It's my kind of team. My major league reference of the day.
It's an opening day miracle for you, Jim.
Yeah, well, you're probably not going to be so lucky. You get to play the Astros, so.
I hate that we have to play the Astros.
Did you see the daily best bet of the day, by the way? A win is a win. You're right, Jerry. Absolutely. It doesn't matter who you beat. You're 1-0. And look, we beat the Brewers. I have like 4 teams that I can't stand, and the Brewers are one of them. So when you start off with a win against the Bud Seligs, it's a great day.
Are the 2 people above us 2 of the other representing 2 of the other teams you can't stand?
I gotta say, and I've been through this. I have a lot of friends who are big Cardinals fans. It's hard to hate the Cardinals because at least they're respectful, and you can have a baseball conversation with Cardinals fans and like a legit baseball. With like Astros fans are like the dumbest fans on the planet. Okay, they go to games and they think the 7th inning stretch is the 5th inning stretch. The White Sox are just waiting for football season to start. So the Bears can stink again. And the Yankees, everybody who's not a Yankees fan hates the Yankees. So, and the Brewers, Bud Selig has kind of started the ruining of baseball. So, I'll never forgive him.
The Seattle Pilots who play in Milwaukee now.
Yeah, exactly that. So, those are the 4 teams that I really dislike the most.
I gotta say, I grew up just absolutely hating the Yankees. I have sort of ruled on that.
Unless you're a fan of them, you hate them, I feel like.
And I don't like them. I still don't like them. But at least the Yankees, like you said, Jim, at least they've got true baseball fans. People who follow. Now, they've also got millions of bandwagoners around the country. But the people who, like, if you go to Yankee Stadium, you're going to get people who know the game.
You're going to meet an 80-year-old man who was watching Mickey Mantle play.
And he's got his headphones on. He's listening to John Sterling
exactly.
in the radio.
So you can appreciate that, even though I don't like. I mean, I just don't like them because they're the Yankees. I mean, you know.
No, I mean you can't like them.
They're easy to hate.
I don't hate them like I hate the Astros and the Angels. Those are the teams that I can't stand.
Angels, they're harmless.
They weren't harmless to my Mariners for a great many years, and they also it's the same thing you're talking about. They got fans who show up and don't know anything about the game and are the rally monkey shows up.
Do they leave early too, like Dodgers fans?
Yeah, and their vocal cord. See, if you've never driven in LA traffic, man, you got to give them a pass on that. Especially the showing up. People always say, "Oh, they show up late." No. You try getting somewhere at 7:00 in LA on a weeknight.
No, Zach. Look, I was watching a special last night about Kirk Gibson and that entire basically the one at bat. It was an hour-long show. I'm like, how do you do an hour show about one at bat? But they did it well. And they had these two fans there that are actually, I think, execs in Major League Baseball then. They were kids then. And they were talking about how their parents made them leave, like in the 8th inning or whatever. And they were still in traffic to get out when Kirk Gibson came up. And they showed like 4 or 5 different people talking about how they were listening to it on the radio. And when Kirk Gibson hits the home run, you see like this stream of brake lights. Like, oh my God, what did we just miss? Because they heard Vince Scully, I guess, call it in the car, or whoever was calling the game, because Vince Scully was actually on NBC doing it. So whoever was calling the game in the car, they're like stream of brake lights, like, oh my God, we just missed maybe one of the greatest hits in baseball history. Kind of like my dad making my grandfather leave before Tom Dempsey kicked the 63-yard field goal back in 1971.
Now, I'm not going to defend that. But I will say, if you're a real baseball fan in LA, there's like a 90% chance you're a Dodgers fan. If you just like to go to games and, wear your sundress and cheer on the rally monkey at the top of your lungs, you go to the Angels games, and then like you take the kids to Disneyland the next day.
I was going to say, it's close to Disneyland.
The thing about Chavez Ravine, and I assume you guys haven't been there, but it's up on a hill, and there are 2 ways to get in, and one is from the 5 freeway, and you circle your way in through the Elysian Park, which takes forever. And the other way is from the 110 freeway, and you got to go up the hill and then through this neighborhood to get there. And there's plenty of parking once you get up there. It's LA. There's got to be parking. But getting out is a nightmare. And so I'm not saying you should leave World Series games early, but like I kind of get it when you're playing the Pirates in June. That you'd be like, listen, I live in Long Beach. It's an hour drive as it is. I got to be to work in the morning. I kind of get it. And I have the Dodgers are probably my second favorite team. So I do have a soft spot.
Yeah, but they do it when they are playing the Giants and they leave in the 7th inning when it's 3-3.
Yeah, I mean, it's not great. I'll give you that. Speaking of the Dodgers, they are actually not the World Series favorites this year for the first time in, I think, since 2018. It was actually your Chicago Cubs were the favorites, Jim. And the Dodgers are fourth on this list. We have actually seen some movement on this list today. The Mets went from 750 to 800. The big news of the day, Justin Verlander, New York Met, starting the year on the IL with a strained armpit muscle. There's a more technical name for it.
They are
that's
cursed.
What it is.
Do not bet on the Mets.
Yeah, he hurt himself putting on deodorant. That's the rumor. Yeah. A little bit.
I don't know. All right. I assume that all of our World Series picks are probably somewhere on this screen because we've got the top. What do we have? 12 teams up here. Chances are your World Series winner comes from this list.
The Cubs
aren't
on
who is
it,
Zoe? No, they're not. You can go off the board if you want.
No, they're not. And Jim, the Cubs may win another World Series when you're dead. So.
Wow.
I mean, to be fair, the White Sox aren't on this list either.
Doctor, can you fit me in tomorrow?
I will say, yeah, I would never bet on the Mets. Poor things, they need help. I feel like last year the Braves were trying to do something to get back into the World Series, but they just fell flat. I would be interested to see what San Diego does this year, and it's really early. You can't really tell what's going to happen on opening day, but I mean, I feel like there could be some value on the Padres because of how good their bullpen is, but it's still March and we got until October.
Horace is rubbing it in.
Spencer, who you got on this list here?
Yeah, it is obviously tough to know with the baseball being so unpredictable, but
Wait. I'm sorry. Hold on, Spencer.
Brock Verbrolio.
Who is Mr. Urquhart's second favorite player out of Lou Brock? I don't mean to cut you off, but this is important.
It's got to be Albert Pujols. The man is a love affair with Albert Pujols, so that's got to be him.
Talking about Raleigh.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. The jersey I have on is a Pujols jersey, so I mean, he is my favorite player. But yeah, my dad has he's got more Albert Pujols cards than anybody I know. So, but anyway, as far as this, I like the Blue Jays this year. I do, and I'm not just saying that because they're beating my Cardinals right now. I feel like they've got one of the most complete teams in MLB. They've got a strong rotation at the top. They've got an elite lineup from 1 to 9. I mean, Kevin Kiermaier addition was sneaky. Him and Dalton Varsho really boost their outfield. Then their infield really strong, of course, with Vlad Jr. and Bo Bichette. And as far as the NL, I like Zoe's take on the Padres. I think the Padres could be sneaky, but I like what the Braves got going on. You know, Jerry, I didn't know Jerry was a Braves fan, but I mean, I'm not a Braves fan, but I do like what they've got. Their lineup's really nice. I like Fried and Strider at the top of their rotation. So it'll be interesting, but my early pick right now is Blue Jays Braves.
All right, I'm going to let Jim go last because I know who his pick is.
I have 2.
And okay. Well, I've got 2 also, and I'm going to start with the Braves because I think that's a decent pick at 850. But I kind of feel like, and I was wrong about Gonzaga in the tournament because I felt the same way about them. But the hype is kind of off. The Dodgers had a ho-hum offseason. And they lost Trey Turner. He's obviously a very good player. Gavin Lux is hurt. But you're telling me their odds went from plus 450 in years past to plus 850 this year? Give me some Dodgers. They're going to be in the playoffs. They're probably going to win that division. I know the Padres are improved. But if the Dodgers win that division, they're going to be in the final 8 teams and will be better than more than half of them. And I'm getting plus 850. I'll take the boys in blue.
You stole my thunder. That's my second team. And I'll start with them. Look, when I do futures odds, I don't necessarily, and this may sound silly to some who don't bet a whole bunch, but I don't necessarily bet on the teams that I think are going to win the World Series. I bet on values. And there are only on this list, and I really think there are only 2 values. The Padres are close at 950 to a value, but really I think they ought to be more like 11 or 12. But to me, the Dodgers, exactly what Zach said, at 850, I don't think you can get a better value on this list because last year they were 400, 450, and I still bought them because I thought they were a value last year. I was wrong. But I think they're a near lock to make the playoffs, and you're talking about a near lock with that pitching staff, assuming that Clayton Kershaw can kind of stay healthy, and the other guys, Tony Gonsolin is a question mark at times, but I really
he's already hurt.
Yeah, and so the Dodgers they could have their issues, but I really like them because I think they're a near lock plus 850. And then the other team that I like, and Zach says that I'm jinxing them, but in the American League, how can you not like the Seattle Mariners? I mean, really, let's talk about value, plus 1,800. Another team, and I bet them to win the division, I bet them to win the American League, and I bet them to win the World Series, and those are literally my only 3 bets at the moment, my only 3 futures. I think the Mariners are going to go forward, not backward. I love their rotation, Zach. They have one of the best rotations in the American League and enough hitting to win 90 to 92 games. I think they're going to give the Astros all they can handle because the Astros, I think, are going to have a tough time winning 100 games. I think more like 96, 97. I think the Mariners can be in that ballpark. And so I think they're a bargain in all 3 of those categories and maybe the best bargain in baseball.
Well, I hope you're right, but I'm afraid that I just got the Jim Derry jinx of all jinxes. I actually think, guys, I really do think the Mariners may be in for a letdown. That may just be my fatalistic. Like every time there's any hype at all around them, they fall flat on their face. So we'll see. I made this list this morning of futures bets I liked, and it's like.
Oh. Good
I just
God,
bet, I didn't
man.
bet quite. I didn't bet all of those, but I bet about 2/3.
Spend some time with your wife and kids, for Christ's sake.
Well, my kid had a field trip, and my wife was with him, and I was home
Lord.
alone, and that's why I was so late.
Okay,
getting ready for
Macaulay.
the show. So, let's dig into a couple of these. My favorite one is the Reds to win the NL Central at 66.
Oh, God, stop! Please stop!
What?
Stop!
The
Just
Reds?
stop!
I only put $3 on it, but
That's
it's gonna
$3
pay-
you could have given to
it's gonna pay
charity.
198.
Yes.
Okay.
Come on.
Hey, aren't the Reds winning right now? They're tied for first place, man.
It's March 30th.
Everyone's tied for first place right now, except for the
Except the
Nationals.
Cubs.
You
The
know
Cubs
what?
are
The
in
Pirates
first.
tied them up 1-1, which brings me to my second favorite pick: the Pirates to win the NL Central at 80-1.
Stop it.
Man,
That's only for
the
$2.
Brews are hitting Zach Horace.
I'd rather
So
buy a
I've got-
Happy
okay.
Meal.
So I've got Pirates at 80-1, Reds at 66-1, and the Cubs from back in December. You can't get them at this price anymore, but I've got the Cubs at 14-1. So basically, I profit is if anybody besides the Cardinals or Brewers wins that division.
In other words, you don't profit.
That's not nice.
I mean,
That's not
it just
nice.
is.
It's
We need
March.
support.
I mean, if I'm being real, I had the Cubs over 78 wins is my best
like
bet
that
for
bet.
NL Central. So I think the Cubs are going to be pretty decent this year.
I think the
And I
Cubs
know a
are
couple of us like
83,
this
84, 85 win team.
I agree.
Gabe Henderson, who is our home field coordinator and writes for us as well, and he's an Astros fan, which is why we didn't let him on the show. But he actually had a good one, I thought too. The Orioles under 78.5 wins. Team got a little too much hype last year. They got real hot and they won like right at 81 games. I mean, can they do that again?
The mighty Rutschman.
They're winning today.
Yeah, they went
If
4
Adley
for
Rutschman
4.
wants to hit 1,000 all year, then yes, they probably will. But
Mr. Santander's. He's going to hit
Yeah, I'm glad I picked the
230 with
over in that
43 home
game.
runs.
That thing
How
went
about,
way over.
what else we got here? The Red Sox to make the playoffs at plus 320.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not really
uh,
buying the Red Sox. Their
Padres
pitching is
under
bad.
94 wins. How about that?
Yeah, at what price?
Minus 110.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
maybe.
I mean, 94 wins is a lot. We'll
It
see.
is.
We got a lot. One thing that a lot of people are betting on is the AL MVP, and I bet on Ohtani here. I think I got him at plus 220, but
That's not a bargain.
I just don't see how. If Ohtani stays healthy.
Did
is
you
Judge
like
to hit
have
60
dinner
again?
or something with Otani? You. I don't know a non-Angels fan who loves Otani more than you do.
I mean,
He-
I'm not sure it's
Can't
possible to
deny
love
his
Ohtani.
talent.
Ohtani's going to play for the Mariners next year, so we're going to really
Oh,
be involved.
God.
in it.
It's possible.
Okay, there's no value there. What about Acuna at plus 900? I mean, it's
not bad.
I like that.
Somebody who could stay
I like
healthy.
that a lot.
I mean, I think Acuna could be. That to me, that's the bargain of all bargains right there. That's what I'd go for. If I was making a sheet where I didn't spend time with my wife and kids, that's what I would put at the top of my sheet.
Let's talk to Jim during football season when he starts breaking down win totals. And then he's really
Yeah,
Well, I have to do.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to do that. I mean, it's like one of my assignments, and they know they're not going to see me from August to January. So I try to see them from
kids were in
January
school.
to July.
The kids were in school. It's all good. In
It's
fact, the
opening
only
day.
time I'm not going to be watching baseball today is during this show and during my son's baseball practice tonight. One of the
And then
coaches
you'll
his
have it
team,
on your
so
phone while he's practicing. Oh, good job.
Maybe.
Yeah,
Oh.
maybe. Man, I got
I'll watch
seagull
both.
stroll. I have to go to a 6th grade something called a seagull stroll tonight, whatever that is. So I'm going to miss like 2 hours of baseball when this show's
Well,
over.
We got White Sox Astros at 6. By
Yeah,
the
I
way,
missed
here's
most
another
of
thing.
that.
If you don't have MLB Network, which if you have YouTube TV, you don't have MLB Network.
Yeah.
There is one game on national TV today. One. What is baseball doing? What are they doing?
No,
Yeah, I couldn't believe that this
ESPN's
morning
on
when I
all day
saw
with
that.
baseball, I thought.
No, not this year. I couldn't believe
They've
that.
got White Sox
Right.
Astros at 6, and that's it.
No, they had the Yankees game on.
No, they didn't. MLB Network had the Yankees game on.
I could have swore it was on ESPN. I mean, I watched
I think
MLB
ESPN
Network
Plus
anyway.
may have had that. ESPN Plus may have had
Okay, it was on there.
that. But yeah, no. If you're just a terrestrial TV person who has old school cable, you have MLB Network had a couple games and ESPN had one. What are we doing?
Anyone who's a real baseball fan or even semi-baseball fan, I mean, if you're gonna bet on games at all, spend $150 and get MLB TV. I mean,
Or if you're I think
I mean-
T-Mobile and Sprint give it away for free.
I mean, you could take the
I got it for
$3
free.
you're going to bet on the Pirates to win the division, and then the $3 you're going to take on the Reds to win the division, and then it's only $144. So take that money that Zach's telling you to bet on that. Instead of doing that, put that towards, and see you got a discount already.
Let's be clear. I didn't tell anyone else to bet that crap. I just bet
Well,
because
I mean, it's
I
at the
told
top
you
of
I
your
bet way
list.
too many. I bet way too. I didn't bet all of these, but I bet a lot of them.
I think you've been hitting yourself in the head with the rally monkey, but that's just me.
Don't ever say that. Don't ever say that. Okay. All right. I hate that one. Zoe and Spencer came for the MLB roundtable, and
All
we're going to
right.
let you guys slip out. But first, we want to know Final Four picks. Who plays in the championship game and who wins it all for both the. We'll start with the women because they play first, and then do the men. Spencer.
Okay, so let's start with the women's first. All right, I was gonna say LSU and South Carolina win, and I'm gonna go with South Carolina to win it all. And then for the men, I'm gonna say San Diego State and UConn make it to the finals, and I won't go chalk here. I'm gonna say San Diego State takes home the national title.
Kawhi Leonard's Aztecs. Tony Gwynn's
Yes.
Aztecs.
Yeah, I mean they
All right.
beat Alabama. That was a statement. When they beat Alabama, that told me, yeah, this team's going far, and so I'm riding with them.
All right, Spencer will take the Aztecs, and yeah, it's pretty hard to pick against UConn in the. UConn, South Carolina in the women. Zoe, what have you got for your Final Four picks?
On the women's side, Louisiana don't hate me for this. I rocked the underdog with Virginia Tech to play South Carolina in the final, but I think South Carolina is going to win the whole thing. They're just deeper and better than Virginia Tech, and I think they'll be a little bit sorry-eyed being this deep in the tournament for their first time ever. With the men, I would probably go with San Diego State and UConn. I'll probably just make a pick 'em and just say UConn.
Where's my chalk? Here's some chalk.
Rockin' chalk.
Yeah.
You want to do ours in our segment?
Yeah, we'll do ours in our segment. We'll say goodbye to Spencer and Zoe. You can catch Spencer every Tuesday on the Fantasy Roundup. He'll have plenty of baseball talk throughout the summer. Thanks for being here, guys. Enjoy opening day.
You guys do.
For sure. See ya.
And Zoe's not actually going anywhere. She's just going to be backstage. So yeah, let's talk.
She's going
Let's
to
talk
go
some
to New
Final Four.
Comiskey.
Let's talk LSU Virginia Tech. LSU's a 2-point favorite. I actually talked to Adam Pullen from Caesar Sportsbook, our sponsor today. He is the assistant trader there in charge of college basketball. He said LSU is actually Caesar's biggest liability on the women's side, and they have been the entire tournament. So they're getting a little bit nervous with LSU continuing to win.
If they win the
Don't
national
know that-
championship, you mean?
Yeah, they got to win the national championship.
It's
That's
about a
the problem.
0.01% chance they win the national championship.
Well, let's start with this game. Do you like them against Virginia Tech?
No. I think
I
that
actually
this
don't
is.
either. I gotta say, I don't either.
I mean, look, I'm not going to call them as a fan. Sure. I mean, I went to LSU. I hope they win. I hope I'm wrong, but they have not. I don't like the way they played in the Elite Eight. It's kind of the same thing I said going down the stretch. They've had a great draw so far. They really have, and they got the 9 seed in the Elite Eight, which was great for them because if they'd have played anyone else, anyone that was better than Miami, they would have lost. They didn't. Angel Reese is not playing well under the spotlight, in my opinion, and the team as a whole has not played well in the spotlight. And I think that continues. I think Virginia Tech is a 1 seed. I'm not sure why they're an underdog here, but I think that's a huge value play, and I would certainly play the money line if I were going to play it. I don't really want to root against LSU, so I probably won't play it because I would probably play it small anyway. So I'd rather just leave it alone and root for the Tigers. But I just don't think this is a good matchup for them. I think Virginia Tech wins, and I don't think it matters. I mean, of course it matters for LSU fans because they want to see them play in the championship, but no one's beaten South Carolina. I mean, I probably jinx them too, but you say I jinx everyone. I can't be wrong all the time. I didn't jinx Georgia. So anyway, South Carolina's going to win this thing.
I think you're right. I mean, obviously, you want to get to the championship game and have another crack at South Carolina, and you never know when you get to that game what can happen. I think my favorite bet in this game is the under. LSU's totals in their 4 tournament games have been 123, 128, 129, and then 96 against Miami. In these big games, they tend to play close to the vest. They try to slow it down. They're not shooting it well, and they're relying on their defense. And I think, I think Virginia Tech may be the same way. So under 133.5 seems too high to me. So I would go under here. The other semifinal game, Friday night in Dallas, South Carolina, 11.5 point favorite over Iowa. Probably aesthetically speaking, going to be a much better game. You get to see South Carolina try to contain Caitlin Clark, who had 41 points in a triple-double in the Elite Eight. She's terrific. I actually, I don't have the total up here, but I like the under in that game as well, because I think South Carolina will do anything to let anybody else beat them besides Caitlin Clark.
I think they will, but they're going to have a tough time because she's so good. I do think that this is one.
Score, but yeah.
I do think this is one matchup that South Carolina, of all the remaining teams, this is probably the team that could give them the most trouble from what I've seen. And I think that it's actually going to be close. This is the one time that I probably would take the points against South Carolina. I think it's going to be a single-digit game. I actually think they may have a scare going into like the fourth quarter. I think they will win by 5, 6, 7, maybe 7 points, but I don't think they cover here. I think no matter who, assuming they win, I would take South Carolina against whoever they play, no matter what the spread is. But I think this is not a great matchup for them, although there's no bad matchup for South Carolina. And I think this is an interesting game, maybe by far the most interesting game of the tournament when you're talking about South Carolina winning runaway. So I think it might be a fun one to watch.
Yeah, one thing I'll be doing is keeping an eye on some live odds. There was a point when South Carolina played Maryland in the regional final on Monday. Maryland had a 6-point lead. I think it was 21-15 after the first quarter. And for a very brief moment, you could have gotten South Carolina at minus 180 on the live line, and I missed it. Yeah. But I thought, man, and then 5 minutes later, they were back up to minus 400, and I missed, and so I should have cashed in on the minus 180 when I could have gotten it, or even I think it was minus 250 a few minutes before that. If South Carolina falls behind at any point this weekend by more than just a couple of points early, I mean, 6-4 isn't going to do it for you. But if it's something like a 20-15 type score, check that live line. You may get some value. And South Carolina, they're not the type of team that's going to panic. They've been there before. They've fallen behind before. They're going to make a run. And here's the other thing is, if you could possibly get them at anything close to even money, once they do make their run, the other team, the odds will shoot through the roof, and you'll have an easy middle opportunity or a chance to play both sides and guarantee a profit.
I said I wasn't going to hedge, and this isn't necessarily a hedge more than it is a value play, but I didn't realize these odds are where they were. I have talked about how I bet South Carolina at minus 180. I bet $180 for them to win 100. I actually might put $15 on Iowa here, because I think whoever wins that game is going to win it. I think Iowa's better than either LSU or Virginia Tech. And so if Iowa were able to pull the upset, putting $15 or so on Iowa and taking away 15 of my potential winnings, I don't think is necessarily a bad play, because I think that is a good value play. Again, plus 800. If they beat South Carolina, I think they're going to win the title. And I think that they have a chance. I don't think they have a good chance, but I think they have a better than 5 or 6 to 1 chance. And then you're talking about projecting what their future odds would be in a national title game. They'd probably be favored, right? So if they're 5 or 6 to 1 to win the South Carolina game, I think getting them at a plus 800 is a good value. So I probably will put a few bucks on that.
Yeah, they're 5 to 1, I believe, on the money line.
So there you go.
South
I think
Carolina, so
8 to 1 then is a great number, because again, if they win against South Carolina, and I'm not saying they're going to, but they have a chance to, I think that's great value at plus 800. So that's where I would put my money.
Yeah,
you can't bet South Carolina now at minus 340. I think if they play that game 4 times, they do lose once. So until now, I kept saying you were getting value at South Carolina, even when they were like minus 220 and then minus 280. Even I still said you were getting value, but now they're minus 340. I don't think there's value. I'm not going to bet 340 to win 100. So I don't think you can no longer bet South Carolina. Only thing you can do is, like Zach was talking about, if it is close late, and even if they're trailing maybe in the third quarter or something, and you get a minus 120 or a minus 140 to win the game, which they'd have to probably be trailing by 5 or 6. That may be a good number. Other than that, I don't think you're going to be able to bet South Carolina the rest of the tournament. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I think you look for live betting opportunities. South Carolina, one note I was going to make, Virginia Tech's never been to a Final Four before. LSU, as we know, has not made it since 2008, and they've never won a game in the Final Four. And Iowa has not made it since 1993, and they also have never won a game in the Final Four. So it's like, not only is this year's team better, but from a historical perspective, you can see why South Carolina is such a heavy favorite.
LSU women, a lot like LSU's men.
Yeah, both 0-3 all time. Well, yeah. I think LSU's men actually 0-4 because the first time they made it, there was a third place game, and they lost that too.
They did have a third place game in 81 or 2.
81.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's 0-7 all time for LSU. So we'll see if they can get one against Virginia Tech. Meantime, on Saturday, the men's Final Four games. Let's dig into that. We mentioned San Diego State. This line has moved this morning. This was the one movement we've seen all week. It was stuck on 2 and 5.5 all week. It's now San Diego State -3 against Florida Atlantic. UConn -5.5. That has held steady. It's been a tournament of upsets, Jim. And for my money, I like having a Cinderella in the Final Four. I don't necessarily like having 3 of them. I like having a couple of, like one real good story who made it and you didn't expect them, and then you got a couple of other juggernauts who are going to go head to head, and you get to see how that works out. This is almost too much craziness for my blood, but it does make for an unpredictable Final Four.
God, I hate being chalky. See, for me, it was easy because, like I said earlier in the week, I bet UConn when they were plus 1,000 before. It was either going into the round of 32 or going into the Sweet 16. I don't remember. But I was ticked at myself for not getting them at 2,200, which is where they started. And I really thought they were one of the best teams in the tournament then. I think they're the best tournament. I think they're the best team in the tournament by far, but you can't bet them because you're not getting any value. And I don't like any of these numbers any kind of way. I know the Sharps obviously are on San Diego State, and I do like San Diego State and UConn to win, but everyone likes that. So, I mean, honestly, if I were a bettor and wanted to have some fun with it, I would probably bet San Diego State and Miami at plus 400 each, and hope you get some fun. I already had UConn, so it was easy for me to bet a little bit on San Diego State and bet on Miami, because if any of the 3 teams now, I'm going to win a little bit. Now, obviously, I'm going to win a little bit more if UConn wins the whole thing, which is what I'm rooting for. I don't think so. Here, you want me to give more jinxes? I don't think Florida Atlantic has a shot in hell to win the national championship. I'm not saying they can't win that game, because they can, but I don't think they have what it takes to win the national championship. We'll see. So I did not hedge with them, even though they had a nice number. So I think any of the 3 other teams could win the national championship, but I think that things start to settle down. I think cream starts to rise here in the Final Four. I thought it would happen in the 8. It didn't necessarily happen that way. I love UConn to win the national championship, but I don't love them at -140 or whatever. What are they? -140, 150. And I think 5.5 is too much to give to a team like Miami that has been super feisty. I'm not going to play either one of these games individually. I wouldn't touch UConn at all. I don't like that spread either way. If I had to bet San Diego State, I would say give the 3, but I don't. You could have had it at 2, and now it's 3, and you missed the boat, and I don't really like that either, to be honest.
I said this on Monday, and I'll repeat it. If you're going to bet Miami, bet the money line.
I agree.
Or bet them to win the title. Because
I don't disagree.
The one weakness UConn has showed this year, they are 1-5 in games decided by 6 points or less, and the one win was exactly 6 points. So
I may bet the money line on Miami as well and get an extra boost. I don't know.
If you cut that to 5 points or less, I think they're 0-4. They've lost all 4 times. And again, some of that is bad luck. Like doesn't mean they're going to lose every close game they play, but they're not a terrific free throw shooting team. They're more inside oriented than guard oriented. They're not the type of team that wins a ton of close games. Now, when they win games, as we've seen in this tournament, they're killing people. They're winning games by 15 or 20 points like they have in this tournament, and they very well might do that against Miami. But I'm with you. I'm not betting it. I've bet against Miami in every round and been burned 4 times. They're a huge reason why I've lost money on this tournament. And so if I'm betting that game, it's going to be Miami money line. I do like San Diego State on the other side. I think,
I just think futures are a better way to go at this point. Money, there you look at it, it's minus 130. I don't know that there's value there, but I just think, and now Miami's plus 500 is 450 earlier in the week. I just think if you like Miami, and like you say with the money line, I'd be more inclined to put a little bit on the money line and then put a little bit on their future at plus 500. To me, those two futures are the best values remaining, San Diego State and Miami. And actually, you kind of minus 130, it's not as high as I thought it would be. You could theoretically put, and I'm just using numbers, so I'm not telling you to go put this amount of money on, but if you put 39 on UConn to win 30, you could put 10 on San Diego State and 10 on Miami. And if one of those three teams win, you're going to win something. So to me, as long as Florida State doesn't win the national championship, you're going to win something. And I think that's the way to go, because I think Florida State at plus 625, I think they could be plus 2,000 and I wouldn't bet them. That's how strongly I feel about them not winning the national championship.
Yeah. I mean, I will say FAU beat Tennessee and looked pretty good doing it. Similar team to San Diego State. But
no,
San Diego State can score the ball better than Tennessee can. So,
I think
Tennessee
all three of those other teams are better scorers than Tennessee.
Yeah, San Diego State. I mean, Tennessee was hurt by Zakai Ziegler being hurt. It's a different team, and so I like San Diego State to win. I'll go ahead and take Miami on the other side, just to another viewpoint. How about the NIT final, Jim? UAB minus 2.5 against North Texas.
UAB has been playing fun. If anybody's watched any of them at all, I had them losing to Vandy, but man, they just kind of wiped the floor with them a little bit, and they're a fun team to watch. Can't go against UAB right now.
Both of those teams from FAU's conference, from Conference USA, by the way, having a good postseason. All right, let's move on to our fourth topic of the day: the Saints preparing for the NFL draft. We are exactly 4 weeks away from draft night, from round one draft night, which we'll be talking about a lot over the next one.
So it gets over with.
So of 5 mock drafts that were published over the earlier this week, 3 of them had the Saints taking a defensive tackle at number 29 with their first pick. Jim, you think that's a bad idea?
I don't think it's a bad idea as much as I think it's not going to happen. The Saints need, if you look at the Saints' needs, you can talk about defensive tackle, which they shored up in the draft, I think. They shored up safety. I think the defensive backfield as a whole is fine. Maybe they need a little bit of help at linebacker. They certainly need help on the defensive line. But, and Jeff Duncan loves to say, they take the best player available on their board. I don't necessarily agree that, but I disagree with that. But I think that they tailor their board to what they need. And what they don't need, before anything, they need offense, and more offense. They need people to help Derek Carr. And I think that running back's got to be at the top of the list, number 1. Number 2, and 2A, I think, is offensive lineman / wide receiver. They need way more depth at offensive line. And honestly, people keep talking about Andrus Peat. I'm in the same yard of not thinking that he's going to be a starter much longer. You need someone on the offensive line, especially on the interior offensive line, like at guard. So I think they need more help on the offensive line. And I know that they've gone out and gotten some help at wide receiver, but I think they're certainly going to draft one in the top 1, 2, or 3 rounds. I would be very surprised, and I'm talking about very surprised, if they don't take an offensive player first with their first pick at number 29. And then I don't think they pick defense until later on. It wouldn't shock me if they took defense at 2 or 3, but I think that 2 of their first 3 picks at least are going to be offense. I think they need to be. And all these mock drafts talking about defensive lineman and tight end from Notre Dame. First of all, he's not going to be there. Second of all, they don't need a tight end. Don't waste the number 1 pick on a tight end. That need is like 5th, 6th down the line. You can't do it. You got to draft for need. This team is close to being a real playoff team again with Derek Carr at quarterback. Please go get what you need. That's what you're saying if you're a Saints fan. And defensive line isn't it?
I agree with you on the tight end. I don't know that you use, unless the guy's just, you think he's the next Jimmy Graham or a real difference maker, which I don't know how you could say that for sure. I wouldn't do that. I will say I don't mind defensive tackle. I think the pick ought to be along the lines. I think that's where the NFL games are won and lost, is quarterback and offensive and defensive lines. You look at the Eagles last year, One reason they were so good is because their offensive and defensive lines kept them in games when Jalen Hurts was making a few mistakes or when he wasn't able to be as explosive. Obviously, Jalen Hurts is a good player too, but you got to have those lines. And the Saints, right now you could put together a decent starting lineup on each side of the ball, but the depth is not there. You mentioned Andres Pete. These defensive tackles they just signed, still something of unknowns. You even at defensive end, you have Cam Jordan on one side, the other side, little bit shaky. Is Marcus Davenport going to be able to do the job over there? With Peyton Turner, is a guy even MIA, right? Like put out an all points bulletin for Peyton Turner. I think you can't really go wrong with picking on the lines, whether it be offense or defense, for really those first 2 picks. And if you do that, then you have the luxury later on in the draft. Yeah, they'll probably draft a running back. They don't need to do that in the first two rounds. They'll probably draft a tight end. Don't need to do that in the first 2 rounds. Wide receiver, maybe if the right guy's there, but they've gotten some depth there now too. They don't necessarily have to do that in the first 2 rounds. To me, it's all about the line play.
What would make you believe that the Saints don't need a running back and a top-notch running back right now?
I'm not saying they don't need a running back, but you can get a good running back in the 3rd or 4th round of the draft. That happens every year. You can, but you're much more likely to get a starting running back in the first 2 rounds than you are to get one in the 3rd. I'm not saying you can't. Alvin Kamara was a 3rd round pick. Sure, you can strike lightning strike in a bottle. Sure, it can happen. But I think that the running back to me is clearly, and I'm not. There's a big distance between 1 and 2. I don't have a problem with what you're saying, and I agree with you. The reason why Philadelphia won the NFC last year. And there's a reason why Kansas City was as good, not just because of Mahomes, but they were also very good on both sides of their lines. And so I do think it's important to shore up both sides of the line. But I think for the Saints, it's more important to shore up this offensive line because I think their defensive line is not far away from being a top 8 or 10 defensive line, whereas their offensive line is probably in the lower teens to maybe 20-ish or something, which is what Derek Carr has had for a lot of his career. So this team, to me, either running back or offensive line, I think has to be the first pick. But to me, running back is more important right now. I think you can get an offensive lineman that can be a, kind of a borderline starter right now and fill in at guard. But I think there's a major need at running back, and Jamal Williams is great. But you have to go into the draft assuming. I'm not saying it's going to be this way, but you have to assume that Alvin Kamara isn't going to play all season because it's a possibility. And even if he comes back like Deshaun Watson in the last 4 or 5 or 6 games, you don't know what he's going to be. And the Saints cannot win without having solid depth at running back, and they don't have that right now, not even close. Yeah, I think they need one. Running back is one position where it is possible to leave it to the 3rd or 4th round and get a good guy. So we'll see. I want to correct what I said, though. Kenneth Walker was a 2nd round pick.
Second round pick.
Yeah, he was actually number 41, and the Saints' 2nd pick is number 40. So that's the type of thing.
If they get a guy like that, that'd be phenomenal.
Yeah, Brees Hall, who was the first running back taken, he got injured, but he looked good in the early going for the Jets. He was number 36. So he was the first running back taken.
It's a
sort of that.
A little different this year, though, Zach. I think if you look at the running backs, and this is a much more important running back draft, and so I think you'll see that here. But yeah, definitely you can get them later. I'm not saying that they don't go O-line then running back, but because they have a higher 2nd round pick, it's not that far out. Like you said, 40. So they have 29 and 40. But I think, to me, those are the 2 positions that they need to look at most. And if they don't go running back O-line and they go O-line and running back instead, I think that's fine too. But I think they have to do that. That's my opinion. Whether they will or not, we'll see.
All right. The other NFL news is a little slow right now, but Lamar Jackson's still in the news. We asked you guys a poll question on Monday, gave you 5 choices. What will happen with Lamar Jackson for the 2023 season? Will he stay with the Ravens? Will he go somewhere? Gave you some choices, or will he have to sit out the season because of a contract holdout because he can't get the deal he wants? And this is pretty widespread here, Jim. We had at least 10% of all 5 responses, and I think this is probably about right. I might tick the Falcons up just a little bit, if anything, because I do think if the Colts and Falcons are the most likely. But yeah, I think there's a quarter chance he sits out.
Kind of looks like a Louisiana Senate race where there's going to be a runoff, right? I think that's probably I think there's more than a 40% chance that he stays with the Ravens. He's doing a lot of talking right now. Does he want to sit out the season? Because to me, at this point, I think those are probably the two overwhelmingly most likely picks. I'm not saying they won't come up with a trade some kind of way, but they don't want to lose Lamar Jackson, and then they're kind of stuck if they do. So I don't think they're going to, unless the Colts are silly enough to trade their pick for their number one pick and give Lamar Jackson a ton of money and be in a whole world of hell, because that's where the Colts would be. So I think there's a better than 40% chance that he stays with the Ravens. I think it's probably more likely of 60 to 70%.
Yeah, I don't disagree. 2 first-round picks plus the contract is a huge price. Although that is the thing where if someone does offer that, the Ravens may say, look, it may hurt us
if they
this
offer
year.
Yeah.
Yeah, it may hurt us this year because Lamar Jackson. Well, it has to be 2 first-round. That's automatic as a non-exclusive franchise.
What I'm saying is, if the Colts offer that, then you jump at it and take it. That's my opinion.
Then you don't match the contract. Let the Colts take their number 4 pick plus next year's first-round pick, and you might be not as good this year if you're Baltimore, but it sets you up for the future.
They're not that far off. That is not. No. I mean, I know the Bengals are playing really well and they've become Super Bowl contenders for 2 years in a row, but that division isn't super great. I think with a decent quarterback, of course, I'm talking Lamar Jackson would be in there. So if he goes back, they're competitive for the division. But I'm saying if they lost him, they got a decent quarterback. I think they could be in the mix this year.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that'd be a great trade for the Ravens.
People forget, Jim, they had the Bengals just about beat if they don't fumble that ball in the half-yard line in the wild card round.
I mean, is Jacoby Brissett signed anywhere yet?
Jacoby Brissett.
I mean, to me, I know he's a completely different kind of quarterback.
Are you talking about him, or are you talking about Tyler Huntley?
Well, no, I'm talking about Jacoby Brissett. If he signed with the Ravens.
Jacoby Brissett's with Washington.
Okay, so he did sign. Yeah. I don't know that Tyler Huntley, just watching him, he got hurt too, and he's actually been hurt a couple different times, so I don't know if I would trust him or not. But I don't know. It just kind of depends. If they were able to get something there and get that, maybe that would be a team that Anthony Richardson could. And I know I've knocked Anthony Richardson a lot, but actually with the type of offense that Baltimore runs, if he was going to be successful early in his career, to me, that would be the team that he would be successful with. He's not nearly 100%. As good a passer as Lamar Jackson is, but he can make plays. There's no question he is one of the best athletes in this draft coming up, and he's a project. But I just don't know that you want to go and spend the 5th or 6th pick of the draft on Anthony Richardson. I think he's probably more of a second-round pick, even though I don't think he will make it that long.
And look, that'd be one place where the Ravens would not be asking Anthony Richardson to do too much because of the defense, because of the veteran coaching staff, because of the running game.
You're probably more likely to start Tyler Huntley in that position.
And maybe you do that. Maybe just like the Steelers did last year, you start the veteran for the first 8 games, and then when you think Richardson's ready, just like they did with Kenny Pickett, you bring him in and let him take you to the finish line. We got to get to our rants. We got to get out of here. More baseball to watch. But real quick, Jim, I thought about the Pelicans tonight. And I know you have more here in a minute. But the Pelicans, hey, we talked about this road trip, this 4-game West Coast swing. They got to go 2-2. Well, they're 2-1. And now they're underdogs in Denver tonight. But they have done at least the minimum of what they had to do on this road trip.
I'll get to it in my rant in just a moment. But, yeah, I'm torn tonight between deciding – what they need to do tonight, whether they need to win or just play well. Losing that 20-point lead is a heartbreaker the other night. But, you look at their schedule, even though it's at home, all the games except for one are at home the rest of the way. But, man, it's set you back a little bit. And some of these teams that they're fighting with are playing well. The Lakers are playing, they got LeBron back now, and they are playing like a team that is going to be there at 6, 7, or 8, and it's going to be hard to beat. And again, the Pelicans need to finish ahead of them to beat them. They can't beat them in a tiebreaker. So they got a lot of work to do. Even though they had that 5-game winning streak and they were looking a little bit like they were going to be, they were almost a sure thing. And here we go. I talked about how they needed to go 2-2 on this trip. Well, I don't know. I think I've kind of changed my mind. I think they need to go 3-1 now. Not just necessarily because of what's coming up and what I just said, but that They need to prove to themselves that they are playoffs worthy. And how else do you do that but to go and beat the number one team in the West? You lose all this momentum. You have a 20-point lead in the second quarter, a 17-point lead at halftime. And then, Zach, you and I were texting about how, that third quarter couldn't have started any worse, but it seemed like they kind of righted the ship, and they hovered between 8 and 12. And then the end of that third quarter came, and they literally gave away 5 points in a matter of about 20 seconds. And that was not only the killer of that game to me, that could crush their souls. That's the kind of 20 seconds in a season that you could look back on and talk about 2 weeks from now and say, that killed and doomed this season. So we can talk about whether Zion's going to make a difference if he comes back all we want, and talk about whether Zion has killed this team and whether him going out and whether he's ever going to be anything. To me, Zion is not a story right now. It's not about Zion. This team has already proved that they can hang with the best of the best, even without Zion. They did it last year with Willie Green leading them. It looked like they were going to turn the tide and do it again. And we talk a lot about this on Datitude tomorrow with David Grubb, tomorrow morning at 9:15, my shameless plug. But I think that the bare minimum, they need to be in this game throughout. And if it's close, they need to find a way to win, or they're going to come home. And when they find themselves in must-win territory with a chance to go 4-1 down the stretch or 3-2 down the stretch, big difference, which is why I think tonight is a huge one. And man, that they had me believing for a little bit, but I'm not sure I believe right now. Ask me again tomorrow morning.
You know what? I know the game against the Warriors was a disappointment, but they're not the first team that Golden State has done that to in that building, and they won't be the last.
Doesn't matter.
I think your point is right. They can't let that snowball. But I actually really like the way they've looked on this road trip. It's like a switch flipped, and it needed to have happened earlier, but it happened, and they look like they mean business. I'm going to pick them to win in Denver tonight. I think they win this game in Denver tonight. I think it's the victory they need to really, at that point, you'd feel pretty safe about them at least getting into the play-in. And then they could go to work on the other stuff. The biggest problem for them is that the Lakers and Timberwolves have both been getting hot also. So they haven't been able to make up any ground.
But they play the Timberwolves, so.
They do play the Timberwolves last game of the season, which could be huge. But I'm going to go ahead and pick them to win in Denver tonight. The Nuggets don't have a whole lot to play for. Pelicans have been playing with a lot of intensity. We'll see what happens. National TNT game.
Well, before you get to your rant real quick, I'm going to say the same thing I said Monday when I said that I wouldn't be surprised if they went to Portland and either won by 30 or lost. I wouldn't be surprised tonight if they won or lost by 30. Neither one would surprise me tonight. I don't know what I'm going to get.
I like them. I certainly would take the points, and I would even take them on the money line. So I think the Pels are in a good spot tonight. Speaking of good things, opening day was today. That's how we opened the show. A brilliant roundtable with Spencer and Zoe joining us. And I love everything about opening day. The pageantry, the bunting, the national anthem, the flyovers, the hope. Like it's warm in one part of the country, it's freezing cold in the other part, but everybody's still like, is this going to be the year? Like, is that going to cash his 80-1 Pirates bet? Like, it might happen this year. Look, we're up 2-1 in the fifth inning, guys. It's going to happen. And then, May happens and June happens and July happens. We get to the dog days and it's all over. But opening day is so great. The one thing I will say is, and I'm stealing this a little bit from our Gabe Henderson, because he texted right away that he got 8 different notifications that Aaron Judge did a home run on his first at bat. And look, I'm not the world's biggest Yankees fan. I don't like the Yankees. I don't hate them as much as I used to, but they're certainly on my short list of least favorite teams. But Aaron Judge seems to be a pretty good guy. He's got a level head on his shoulders. He's sure as hell fun to watch a guy hit baseballs that far. I saw him play in college at Fresno State 10 years ago, 12 years ago. And so I kind of have a soft spot. I like the guy. But like the 62 home runs, they're cutting into every college football game across all of ESPN's networks last fall and showing us every at-bat. And now we're getting updates and you're getting notifications on your phone for it. Are we going to do this for every home run the guy hits? Like, can I remind you that Aaron Judge has played one full season in his career without injury? It was last year. One. Percentages say he had one other year where he missed like 20 games, and played most of the season. Every other year he's missed 50 or more games. So number one, the guy may not even stay healthy. Number two, Like the chances of him hitting 60 again, I know he hit one today, are very slim. He's going to walk 200 times before he's going to hit 60 homers again. And I just like, please don't make me hate the guy because you can't stop talking about him. Every tiny little thing, every time he does a tiny little thing. Tell me about Juan Soto. Tell me about Ronald Acuna. Tell me about Julio, for God's sake. Tell me about Shohei, who is the greatest player who ever lived. I'm already convinced. Tell me about Mike Trout. I don't need to hear about every time Aaron Judge picks a sunflower seed out of his teeth, okay? I just don't need to hear it. That's my rant.
Will you stop it with Shohei Ohtani, for God's sake?
Dude, no! Shohei's amazing.
Well, here's my thing. I have two things. One, Aaron Judge is, to me, the LeBron James of baseball. We've got to hear every single, I agree with you, we've got to hear every single thing he does. I just don't care. I don't care what, he's not the GOAT of today. He's not the GOAT of, he's certainly not the GOAT. I don't care. Great, he hit another home run. Everybody hits home runs today. It's the Yankees. If he played for the Rays, would they still be giving updates every time he hit a home run? No. Do they send a home run, an alert every time Shohei strikes somebody out or Shohei hits a home run? No, they don't.
They probably should.
No, they definitely shouldn't. And, before we go off the air, and the home of the brave. There you go.
Brilliantly done. Brilliantly done.
That's how we go out.
Cam Davis just 4-putted, and he was another one of my picks. So that's how betting's going. Hopefully this sheet of MLB futures goes a little bit better. Look at all those glorious picks. I have a whole chart.
Go spend time with your wife and children.
Hey, Russell Crowe and A Beautiful Mind, eat your heart out, okay?
More like a Cinderellas story.
LSU plays Virginia Tech in the women's Final Four tomorrow. Enjoy that. Enjoy the men's Final Four. And, of course, the opening weekend of baseball. We'll be back with you at 4 o'clock on Monday. Our thanks to Spencer and our producer Zoe for dropping in and talking some baseball with us. And our thanks to our sponsor, Caesars Sportsbook. Sign up, NOLA.com/Caesars. And we'll see you guys at Datitude tomorrow with Jim. That way on at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning and 4 o'clock Monday. Bayou Bets. For Zoe and Spencer and Jim, I'm Zach. Thanks for being here.